What happens when glamour and fire meet live on national television? When Hollywood royalty walks onto a stage where one word of truth can ignite a wildfire within seconds? When one unexpected question creates a reaction that will be replayed hundreds of thousands, even millions of times around the world? Before we dive into that unforgettable encounter between Nicole Kidman and Joy Behar, be sure to hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, and leave a comment below, because what you are about to witness is a scene of cinematic proportions, just the way we like it here at Channel. Raw, intense, and captivating. That morning in the studio, there was a palpable buzz that didn't just stem from caffeine. No, it wasn't just the typical chatter between the co-hosts, and it certainly wasn't the playful sparring the viewers knew so well. The air was electric, heavy with anticipation, and the audience seemed to be leaning forward, whispering to each other, anticipating a storm that was brewing just behind the camera. Then Nicole Kidman walked in, a vision of poise. There was no need for her to command attention. Her presence was enough to hold the room. Tall, ethereal, and grounded, yet carrying an invisible strength in her frame, there was something serene in her eyes, as though all was calm either before or after a gale. "Joy's in a mood," a producer whispered to her handler backstage as Nicole made her way to her dressing room, earning a quizzical look from her handler. Nicole merely flashed a polite, guarded half-smile. The intro music swelled and the anchors entered, standing behind the imposing desk in their signature spots. Joy Behar, in particular, moved with the confidence of someone who has survived decades of daytime television tsunamis, celebrities, politicians, outrage bringers. Nothing was a match for her. However, today there was a dangerous glint in her eyes, a mix of excitement and daring which suggested that sparks were guaranteed. "Welcome back to The View." Whoopi Goldberg boomed over the applause. "We have a very special guest today, Academy Award winner, humanitarian, producer, and star of the hottest new psychological thriller, Nicole Kidman." The crowd erupted, and Nicole strolled in, looking effortlessly elegant in a simple cream dress, a graceful, understated smile playing on her lips as she greeted each anchor and gracefully settled into her seat. The interview kicked off with the predictable, yet lighthearted queries about her film and career. Nicole answered with her usual warmth and composure, each syllable perfectly enunciated, each word precisely placed. Then Joy Behar leaned in. The air suddenly tightened and the smiles on everyone's faces seemed to freeze. "Nicole," she said, tapping a pale blue cue card with her finger, "you've built a reputation for being, shall I say, rather controlled, perhaps even a little cold. Would you say that's a fair assessment?" A subtle flutter passed through the studio audience as Nicole's smile tightened slightly, her eyes momentarily blinking away what seemed like confusion before returning them to Joy with a faint tremor in them. "I beg your pardon?" Joy's face hardened with a devilish smirk. "Your silence during public controversies? Your tendency to avoid strong political stances? It's wise, perhaps, some would say detached." Whoopi shot her a stern, cautionary glance, but Joy ignored her. Nicole's expression remained placid, but the tension in the room was electric. "Well," Nicole replied, her voice smooth and slow, "I am a private person. That doesn't necessarily mean I am cold." Joy let out a short, sharp laugh that wasn't humorous, but rather a barb. "Oh no, I understand. But viewers want to connect with you. They want to know the person beyond the acting roles, the woman behind the perfectly crafted facade. Is there ever a side of you that feels hidden beneath that perfection?" The studio went silent. Each pair of eyes locked on Nicole. Audience members shifted uncomfortably, sensing that they had stumbled upon something unexpected. Nicole adjusted her posture slightly, tucking a stray piece of hair behind her ear as she momentarily collected her thoughts, buying herself a sliver of time. Her gaze met Joy's, and a subtle shift occurred within Nicole. The placid exterior cracked ever so slightly, and beneath it a steel, cold and quiet, emerged. "I am not hiding," Nicole stated, her voice calm but unwavering. "I simply do not believe that the world needs to know my innermost thoughts and feelings to appreciate the work that I do." Joy leaned in further, her eyes gleaming. "So, you don't believe the public deserves honesty?" A hushed gasp rippled through the studio. Whoopi started to speak, but Joy silenced her with a raised hand, her gaze never wavering from Nicole's. Her smile stretched just wide enough to look like a taunt. Nicole inhaled, seemingly weighing her options, before sitting up even straighter. "I believe honesty takes many forms," she declared, her voice crisp and measured. "I am an actress. My honesty is expressed through my performances, through my characters, through my creative choices. I do not need to parade my personal life before an audience to prove my authenticity." The front rows of the audience broke into a soft murmur of approval, mingled with a smattering of applause. "That's rather convenient, isn't it?" Joy retorted, her tone laced with renewed acidity, especially for someone who always seems so untouchable and unflappable. They say you have no emotions, Nicole. Nicole's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly, the cool air around her suddenly turning frosty. I am not devoid of emotion, she replied quietly. I merely do not fly off the handle on cue. A flash of heat crossed Joy's face. Oh, trust us, we've noticed, she shot back, leaning in closer. Nicole's smile finally dissolved entirely. The room was suddenly still. She looked directly at Joy, and in her gaze was not anger, but a palpable, profound disappointment. It was the kind of look that made everyone else in the room instinctively lower their own gaze. Joy, Nicole said, her voice soft but carrying a weight that seemed to hold the attention of the entire room. I came here today to discuss my work. I did not come here to be told who I am by someone who has never met me, spoken to me in private, or cared to ask beyond a sensational headline. Joy's mouth opened to respond but closed, her expression momentarily frozen. You say I am controlled, Nicole continued, her voice clear and steady. I say I am deliberate and thoughtful. You say I am cold, yet my life is dedicated to infusing characters with emotion, to sharing stories that resonate with millions. And you say I am untouchable, but perhaps that is simply a defense mechanism against an industry that is all too eager to tear you apart at the first sign of weakness. The audience murmurs and a ripple of applause swells. Joy, flustered, leans back slightly, her face visibly flushed. Even Whoopi nods subtly, a look of admiration in her eyes. Nicole's hands remained clasped serenely in her lap, but the air crackled with the energy of a battle hard won. Joy attempts a nervous chuckle, trying to salvage the moment. Well, she stammers, that's getting rather intense. Nicole doesn't return the smile. The studio lights seem to intensify. A whisper spreads through the audience. She shut her down. The murmur of anticipation builds, the room alive with the knowledge that the next moment would determine whether this was a passing spark or a full-blown on-air inferno. Joy leans in again, slower this time, her guard slightly raised but the fire in her eyes still burning. Nicole remains poised, ready, unfazed, and that's when the segment producer rushes over, gesticulating wildly behind the camera. Only seconds away now from the next, much-anticipated question. The question Joy was determined to ask despite all warnings. The question nobody expected. The question that would ignite a wildfire. The red light above the main camera blinked on again, live. Yet the usual familiar energy of the studio failed to resume. Every single action and breath seemed to freeze as hosts, crew, and audience members waited for an outcome none of them could foresee. Even the atmosphere had changed. The chill of the air conditioning had faded, being replaced by an uncomfortable, suffocating warmth. Nicole sat upright, projecting an air of composure. But underneath her flawless demeanor, a hidden tremor of adrenaline danced. Joy Behar leaned back, getting ready for the second round of the interview, but the glint of doubt lingered in her eyes, a sharp reminder of Nicole's sharp reply, which she hadn't seen coming. Whoopi, ever the observer, scanned the women before her with an experienced eye. Sunny, tightly clutching her index cards, nervously shifted from side to side as she pleaded for less complicated and more predictable questions to be posed to her co-host. None of that would matter. Joy had already committed to her decision. With a defeated sigh, the producer lowered his hands. So, Nicole, you've always been known to be, let's just say, selectively honest, Joy declared, leaning in, drawing out the tension. She relished the disquiet spread across the audience. Do you feel like Hollywood is protecting you due to your associations, or is it because you're too savvy to ever let your dirty laundry air out in the public eye? A shocked whoa was emitted from a segment of the audience, followed by murmurs, and the remaining half were so engrossed that they seemed to be holding their breaths. Nicole, on the other hand, remained unfazed. Instead, a gentle smile curved her lips, and her gaze met Joy's. Not one of weakness, but one that conveyed pure, unadulterated clarity. Selectively honest, Nicole repeated softly, a hint of disbelief in her voice, yet no fear. Then, secrets? Joy pressed on, chin raised, her intent seemingly not to back down. You've often been accused of hiding behind the carefully curated image you've built over the years, rarely addressing speculation or conflicting reports. Some suggest that Hollywood guards you simply because you understand the system well enough to stay silent when everyone else chooses to speak. A collective gasp flew through the audience. Whoopi, visibly uneasy, brought her hands together in a prayer gesture and muttered under her breath, "Dear Lord." Nicole leaned in slightly, causing the cameras to zoom in on her face, her serenity now tinged with a chilling fire. You seem to think that because I don't address every rumor and accusation thrown my way, I'm not honest. she stated in a low tone. She let out a faint, bitter laugh. Joy, over the years, Hollywood has taught me that if you respond to every single whisper, every falsity, and every fabricated piece of gossip, you stop being an artist and become a puppet. Joy opened her mouth to respond, but Nicole's words continued to flow. You want transparency? Fine. She placed a hand over her heart. I grew up with the camera pointed at me even before I knew who I was. Every error, every heartbreak, every emotional struggle was readily broadcasted to the world, and in turn, when I learned to create boundaries, I was labeled a hiding actress. Do you see the irony in that? The audience collectively murmured in understanding. Nicole's composure remained unruffled, but her words hit them like a lightning strike. I'm just doing my job. Joy attempted to salvage the situation with a forced laugh. No. Nicole interrupted softly. You're not. A hush fell over the room. You're doing what so many do within this industry. You confuse their thirst for answers with their right to your innermost thoughts and feelings. You assume because I'm an actress, my private life and every pain I've endured must be public knowledge, but you are wrong. The room fell silent. Joy seemed speechless, and Sunny clutched her cards tighter than ever. Everyone's eyes were locked on Nicole Kidman. Whoopi reclined, impressed by Nicole's strong stance. Nicole continued, her voice steady but filled with a quiet, burning intensity. If you want to ask me questions about my career, my craft, and my work, be my guest. But please, do not mock my intelligence by pretending this is a journalistic endeavor when, in reality, it's a direct provocation. The audience applauded, but Joy slammed her palm down on the table, abruptly silencing them. Are you saying I can't ask a few tough questions now? Am I not allowed to challenge Hollywood A-listers? Nicole's eyes narrowed, her expression one of finality as if she had reached the end of her tolerance. Challenging questions are one thing, Nicole stated calmly. Cheap shots are another. The studio erupted with a wave of applause and whistles from the audience, and Joy's face deepened into a furious scarlet. Let me challenge you, Joy, Nicole said, leaning forward, her voice lowering but losing none of its intensity. You speak of Hollywood protecting me, but who really holds the power here? She asked, gesturing to Joy. You hold all the power through the format of this show. You have the ability to ask any question and direct it any way you please without being held responsible for any repercussions or even acknowledging the damage that each question may cause. You have built your career by provoking people? Joy scoffed in disbelief. That's absurd. And what do you think? Nicole continued, her voice growing stronger. You have a choice to live your life this way, but do not confuse fearlessness with recklessness, and do not confuse my privacy with your weapon. The audience roared with a thunderous ovation, and some even stood. Joy stared at Nicole, seeming to see her in a new light, not the fragile Hollywood actress she had expected, but a powerful, composed woman standing her ground. Whoopi shifted in her seat, a slight smile on her face as Nicole's composure remained intact. If you are seeking honesty, Nicole stated firmly, her voice now calmer but still carrying a deep sense of conviction, then here is my honest truth. I owe nothing to this industry except my work, and I owe you and no one else anything but what I choose to share. The audience erupted again in applause, a wave washing over Nicole. The tension in the room still lingered, however, and Joy, clearly unable to stomach her defeat, retorted, So you believe you are completely untouchable? You don't care about criticism? That's not what I'm saying, Nicole replied, a soft, sad smile spreading across her face. I'm not afraid of it. Joy trembled as she fumbled with her cue cards, opening and closing her mouth repeatedly as the audience waited in suspense. Whoopi intervened by placing her hand on the table. Ladies, she said, let's take a deep breath before this whole thing goes south. Joy, somewhat composed now, asked in a strained voice, So, you're claiming that everyone who thinks they know who you are is wrong, and that only you have the real truth? Nicole tilted her head, a single tear welling up in the corner of her eye, which she quickly wiped away with a finger before looking at Joy and stating in a powerful voice, No, I'm claiming that only I have the right to define myself. The studio fell into a moment of silence, and then an overwhelming roar of applause erupted from the audience. Joy looked out at the crowd, seemingly dumbfounded by the turn of events and whether she had lost control or if Nicole had truly put her in her place. The segment producer frantically signaled for commercials, but the cameras continued to linger on the scene before the show finally went off air, leaving every soul in the studio buzzing and knowing that they had witnessed history. The commercial break was anything but. It was Eye of the Storm. As soon as the cameras faded to black, the studio turned into silent battleground. Employees flew like flies in the frenzy to fix something that was already broken. Stage manager, a small girl, spoke quickly into her headset as makeup artist hovers around Nicole, a hair of 2 inches from touching Nicole, wondering if the movement would disrupt Nicole's calm, perfected state. Another employee carrying a fresh cue card offered it to Joy, who snapped a refusal, pushing it away before it touched her hand. Nicole was perfectly still, taking deep breaths through her lips, her fingertips pressed against one another. Not mad, not shook, just calm, centered, as if she'd already hit rock bottom and there was no fear left to hold her captive. Joy, on the other hand, had to play with her pen as it drummed the table in unpredictable rhythm. Her shoulders tensed as her eyes searched for any friend, life raft, reset button, none found in the room. The whisper that started among the crowd was loud, like an electrical charge traveling through every seat. Did you see that face? She totally shut Joy down. It's going to be trending in minutes. Oh, Joy is going to be furious. The audience were all tense and charged, their breath each carrying static. You were too much, Whoopi whispered to Joy. Joy did not reply, stare forward with jaw clenched, swallowing something back that refused to let go of her. You were, Whoopi whispered again. Sunny's nervousness was a tangible aura, eyes flitting between both of them. We can pull this back. Pivot to a different subject. No, Joy muttered under her breath. We're finishing this. Finishing what? Whoopi queried. An issue? A fight? Joy remained silent. The producer was kneeling in front of her. Look, we've got Nicole for another 10 minutes. Stay calm and respectable, and pivot. Joy, pride overriding every rational thought, would not. Nicole, poised and unruffled in her stillness, watched them all, but not as an antagonist or a defender. Just aware, present, strong. The count was 10, 9, 8. Nicole inhaled slowly and exhaled in a graceful, drawn-out manner. Joy took a shaky breath as Whoopi braced for impact. 2, 1, we're live. The red light flashed. The studio felt electric, like a match held over gasoline. Whoopi tried to steer the show. Welcome back to The View. If you're joining us now, it's certainly been eventful. Nervous giggles fluttered through the audience. Nicole politely tipped her head. A peace offering or a warning? The next round began. So, Nicole? Joy leaned forward with a smirk, her voice liquid smooth. Perhaps you are just too composed. We were discussing your avoidance of rumors and press, something we consider tactical silence by some standards. Others consider that a lack of responsiveness. Whoopi shot her a dark look. Seriously? It could also be seen as avoidance, Joy continued. A gasp from the audience. Come on, a woman behind them muttered, loud enough for the people in front of her to turn. Nicole didn't move. Joy, Nicole replied calmly. That's what we've already covered. I think it's an important point, Joy insisted. No, Nicole replied softly. It's a fixation. The room held its collective breath as a wave of murmurs rolled through the audience. Nicole proceeded with her usual poised but pointed delivery. Her words, cutting like a well-aimed sword, served as a constant reminder that the game of war was once again underway. You've gone back to that issue as if I owe you an explanation for speculation, Joy. I do not. Joy crossed her arms. Convenient. Nicole leaned in, the picture of poised elegance, but with devastating accuracy. Its dignity. The room burst into an uproar of cheers, applause, and whistles. Joy's nostrils flared, her jaw tight with fury, and Whoopi lightly smacked the table. Ladies, please, let's keep this civil. But Joy wasn't backing down. Her pride was burning, and she'd already been beaten twice. Fine, Nicole. Joy changed tactics suddenly, her voice laced with bitterness. Let's talk about your marriage. The blood drained from Nicole's face as if the world had stopped. Whoopi froze as Sunny covered her mouth. Joy continued relentlessly. You've always kept your personal life behind closed doors, haven't you? What are you trying to shield yourself or someone else? What the hell are you doing? Whoopi hissed. It was too late. Nicole's breath caught not visibly but subtly, a subtle inhale as if deciding whether to break or endure. She would not break. Joy, Nicole stated, her voice low. That is inappropriate. Joy dismissed her with a wave of her hand. Oh, please, you're a public figure. It's fair game. No, Nicole declared. It is not. Or perhaps, Joy challenged, leaning back, you simply do not want to answer. A flash of pure pain, not directed at Joy, but at the invasive media culture she'd navigated for decades, flickered in Nicole's eyes. Then she did what no one expected. She laid bare a truth she had never told. I am very private about my personal life, Nicole stated, her voice shaky but steady, because my marriage was almost destroyed by the media. The studio fell silent. Nicole took a breath. And I made a promise to myself then that I would protect my loved one should I ever love again. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Many in the audience were wiping tears. Nicole gave a gentle, heartbreaking smile. And so yes, I am private. It is mine. It is real. And it is not for sale. Joy swallowed hard. For just a second, a shadow crossed her face, but it quickly hardened again. So you blame us? The media? No, Nicole said calmly. I blame people who mistake curiosity for entitlement. Do you think you're better than us? Joy snapped, her reflexes too fast for thought. Nicole's brows furrowed. What? You sit here, pretending you're too good for questions, Joy continued, her voice rising. Above the audience, above us all. Nicole leaned forward. Her expression softened not with anger, but with profound hurt. Joy, she whispered, I'm not above anyone. I'm just trying to keep intact the pieces of my life that are too important to break again. The air was thick and charged, a painful truth hanging between them. Joy hesitated, then forced a hollow laugh. Well, that was a very emotional answer. You still didn't answer the question, though. Nicole straightened, regal in her poise. Then, in a move that would be instantly shared across all social media platforms, she delivered her knockout punch. Joy, Nicole said calmly, you are not asking questions. You are picking at scabs, and I will not bleed for your entertainment. The applause was deafening, visceral, uncontrollable. The audience rose to their feet in a wave of sound. Joy sat frozen, silent, mortified. Nicole looked not victorious but relieved, as if she'd finally shed a burden she'd carried for far too long. We need to wrap up this segment, Whoopi said, taking over and cutting through the palpable tension. But there was no wrapping up that segment. Joy stared across the table at Nicole, her breath coming short and rapid, her cheeks hot with fury and embarrassment. Nicole looked back at her, and for a second, the kindness in her eyes felt shockingly out of place in the charged air between them. You don't have to do this, Nicole whispered, her voice so low only the hosts in the front row could hear it. Joy's chin wobbled slightly. For a moment, it looked as though she might say something in return. Then she looked away again. The producer frantically gestured to finish the segment. Whoopi let out a breath and turned to camera one. Well, we'll be right back, she said, her voice tinged with an undercurrent of something else. And wow, stay with us. The camera cut, the lights dimmed. The audience erupted into a low roar, a vibration of whispers filling the studio. Both Nicole and Joy remained still, one utterly composed, the other fraying as the full weight of what had just happened settled in. This wasn't just an interview anymore. This was a breaking point, a moment that would dominate headlines. When the camera cut for the final commercial break, the studio felt raw, stripped bare of any artifice. Tension hung in the air like a thick, invisible fog. The audience, used to lighthearted chat, political sparring, or perhaps a little feisty debate, was stunned into silence, hands clutching armrests, murmurs of disbelief passing between them like a virus. Nicole Kidman sat calmly, hands folded in her lap, her breathing steady. The storm had passed over her, leaving her untouched. In fact, she seemed lighter, as though the release of words she'd guarded for decades had lifted a weight only she could truly comprehend. Joy Behar, on the other hand, was hollowed out. Her arms were crossed tightly, her jaw clenched, her eyes downcast, as though tracing an invisible list of every regret she'd ever had. Makeup artists fluttered, but she waved them away, her chest heaving with uneven, frustrated breaths. The armor that so effortlessly draped her television persona, the razor-sharp wit, the biting humor, the unshakable confidence had been shattered by Nicole's quiet, unvarnished truth. Stagehands milled nervously, unsure whether to let the segment finish or abruptly pull the plug. A producer whispered harshly into his headset, his eyes darting between the two women and the control room, silently pleading for someone to do something. Among the audience, whispers quickly escalated into a cacophony of opinions. She needed to hear that. No, Joy was way out of line. Nicole handled that like a pro. Ouch. But that was real. I can't believe they just let that happen live. The murmur grew like an agitated sea. Whoopi stood, arching her back. Every damn year, she muttered to herself, rubbing her temples. Every season, there's something. Sunny cautiously approached Nicole. Are you okay? She asked softly. Nicole offered a gentle, calm smile. I am, thank you, she said. Really? Sunny nodded, her concern not fully abating. That was intense, Nicole murmured with a quiet, almost melancholic laugh. I didn't come here for a fight, but I wasn't going to be torn apart either. There was a lifetime of resilience in her voice. Joy heard her from across the table. She swallowed hard, but said nothing. Then the floor manager's voice cut through the room. Back in 10. The audience straightened. The crew moved into position. The host's masks of professionalism snapped back into place, freshly applied. 5, 4, 3. The red light glowed. Whoopi, grounded and in control, stepped back into the conversation. Welcome back, she said, her voice a steady bridge over the recent emotional turmoil. It's been an emotional discussion today, and we thank you for staying with us. The camera swept across the table. Nicole poised and serene, Joy rigid and guarded, a storm still simmering beneath the surface. Sunny, sympathetic, and gentle. The studio held its breath. The moment had passed, but its echoes would reverberate long after the cameras were off. Whoopi sank back, exhausted. Nicole remained still, waiting. Joy took a sharp breath, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. Then, in a moment that caught everyone by surprise, she spoke. Nicole, Joy said, her voice softer. More fragile than before? I want to say something. Nicole turned her gaze to Joy, her expression open and gentle. Joy swallowed again. I push people. It's what I do. It's part of the job sometimes. But I didn't mean to cross a line with you. The audience leaned forward, a hush falling over the room. Joy's gaze softened further, her vulnerability palpable. You're right, she said. I was probing, and I wasn't fair. Nicole blinked, her surprise visible but not hostile. Joy's voice wavered slightly. Your honesty today. That was powerful. I respect that more than you can know. The studio was silent. A warmth spread across Nicole's face, an unguarded empathy emanating from her. Joy, she said softly. I appreciate that, truly. Joy nodded, exhaling as if for the first time in minutes. I guess I didn't expect you to be that honest. I didn't expect you to be that strong. Nicole smiled, her confidence quiet and unwavering. I've lived long enough to know when I need to speak up. Joy nodded again, her eyes now glistening. Well, thank you for doing that here, even though I didn't make it easy. Slowly, Nicole reached across the table and gently placed her hand on top of Joy's. The audience let out a collective sigh of relief, many smiling. It wasn't complete forgiveness, but it was understanding, unexpected and raw. Whoopi leaned back with a loud sigh. Thank God, she muttered, tapping her fingers on the table. All right, can we breathe? Does anyone need tea? A nap? A vacation? The studio audience laughed, genuine laughter this time. Nicole chuckled softly, and even Joy managed a small, almost imperceptible smile. The room began to thaw. Nicole finished the interview gracefully, returning to a professional demeanor as she answered questions about her film, her answers now tinged with a newfound openness. The audience ate it up. When the credits rolled and the lights came up, the applause was warm and heartfelt. Nicole embraced Sunny, thanked Whoopi, and then turned to Joy. Joy hesitated, then stepped forward, and they shared a brief, tentative but genuine hug. The audience cheered, relieved at the sight of closure. As Nicole walked backstage, her silhouette framed by the studio lights, it was clear everyone had witnessed something special. A confrontation that had somehow led to honesty, vulnerability, and ultimately, healing. Outside the studio, the reaction was already a wildfire. Within minutes, clips were all over social media. Nicole Kidman shuts down Joy Behar. Joy crosses the line, Nicole responds. Most tense interview in The View history? Everyone was talking. Some defended Joy, others lauded Nicole. But everyone agreed. No one had expected that much raw emotion. Entertainment websites scrambled for angles. Publicists worked furiously, and within hours, thought pieces were appearing everywhere. Twitter, the entire internet, exploded. Memes, slow-motion clips of Joy's expression when Nicole delivered her killer line, "I won't bleed for your entertainment," went viral, becoming iconic, quoted, shared, and imprinted on viewers' minds forever. Nicole left the studio with her reputation enhanced. Stronger, more human, unforgettable. Joy, though facing criticism, earned grudging respect from some for her on-air acknowledgement of her misstep. In the end, the confrontation hadn't broken either woman, it had revealed them. And that's why this moment still resonates, why people still debate it, why we replay it. It wasn't just a clash, it was truth-telling, a reckoning on live television where dignity, vulnerability, pride, and pressure collided and we all got to watch. Now, it's your turn. What do you think happened between Nicole Kidman and Joy Behar? Who was right? Who crossed the line? Whose side are you on? Let us know in the comments below. And if you're looking for more cinematic, emotional, explosive stories like this one, make sure you subscribe to Showdowns, hit like, and turn on notifications because the next story could be even wilder.